Hey everybody, I'm Bianca.
And I'm Latira, and welcome to Melanated Movie Moments.
Hey Latira,
Hey, Bianca.
what's up? What we got on the plate today?
Today we are talking about two films.
Always.
The first film that we are going to start with today is Concrete Cowboys, starring Idris Elba.
Woo! I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep talking.
Okay. Yep. I have not had a crush on Idris Elba since he played the crazy guy in the movie with Taraji P. Henson. Sorry. Yeah, I have not looked at him the same. But we are going to talk about Concrete Cowboys today. Okay. So first of all, when I first saw it, I'm like, wait, is this a true story? Oh no, it's like a fake story based on true people. Got it. But what I did love, unlike another movie we previously reviewed, is that while they used the real people in the movie, I felt like they were actors.
Yeah.
I felt like they were a part of the film. I did not feel like they were playing themselves. Like they were able to emote as if they were an actor taking on the role, but they really were playing themselves. So I truly enjoyed that. I actually enjoyed that. And I know one of those people, his name was Paris in the movie. His real name, I don't know it. I'm sorry. Yes, I do. Jamil Pertis, and he was Paris, but he was actually a real writer, Fletcher Street writer, which I was like, oh, he's doing really good in this role. Did not realize he was really like a horse rider. So that was cool for me.
I got you. Like this movie, I'm telling you, is really cool. A brief setup is just basically it starts off as I'll say like your classic tale you hear about. Almost reminds me of like you seen Boys in the Hood. When the mom is like, look, I'm trying to work with this son. He's not a bad kid, but he's making bad choices. They don't even tell you necessarily all the bad choices, but you kind of start off seeing the results of one of these choices. Mom is like, you can't keep getting kicked out of school. You can't keep getting in trouble like this. Like you can't, like, the young black man is like 15 or so in the movie. He's been in other McLaughlin. Yeah. Definitely keep an eye on him. Seriously. Like, but basically mom is just like, you got to go stay with your dad. Like, and trust me, and this is like almost a last ditch effort because the relationship with Pop is not great.
Is it a relationship? Would you call it a relationship?
No.
Right. I say, was it? I would say
you just the next of kin, and I know you're gonna make sure this boy like you care enough to do that. Right. And basically she drops him off. There's more to the scene than that, but she drops him off
and pulls off.
And he don't want to be there. And Pop doesn't necessarily seemingly not want him there, but also doesn't necessarily like he doesn't know how to be. He's not prepared to take care. But through this, we get to experience through these characters. His father is one of the cowboys, like in Philly, and it's like, and we get to see because he brings them in with the stable. There's a horse in his house at one point, like all these things. And it kind of, the backdrop and the main connection of the story is everything that's going on with these stables, with these riders, with some people who used to be riders and kind of went back to the streets, with people that basically their refuge from the streets is the stables and the horses and the community they have with each other. Method Man's in here too, so that's
yes. Yeah. Method Man. Let me just do a quick PSA. Method Man. Clifford Smith, please share your life livings with people so they can look as good as you when they are your age. I'm just gonna say that your wife is blessed.
METHOD, man. So, but that's the backdrop for the story. But throughout that, you get to see the dynamics of relationship. You get to hear the real history of the stables and what's going on, at least some of it. But at the same time, the main centerpiece is also watching this kind of partial coming of age, not fully, but like watching the young man learn more about family, about community, about being part of something greater than himself, about his choices and some hard lessons he has to learn. Some of them repeatedly. You'll get frustrated in the movie. It takes him a second to fully make some right choices. But and the connection and learning more about like his father and what his dad's been doing, and for his father to also learn some own lessons about, being there in response, being responsible for not just, we can't just pick and choose what we're responsible for. We can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna be great for this and community and horses, but then fail my own child at the same time. So there's growth in a lot of different areas. I enjoy, a lot of things about this movie, but that's like the setup for all that's going on.
So the one thing I feel like you didn't highlight, and it was a parallel for me, and I think it was like a life lesson parallel, is that, how they always say you got to break the horse, and people always take that as, I want to break their will, I want to break their spirit. But in the context of this movie, they were like, you gotta break more than horses. And it wasn't so much that I want to break your spirit, but I want you to tap into your gifts and your talents and your greatness. And the only way you can do that is if I can make you shed certain aspects of your attitude, because those things won't take you far. So, I mean, I'm about themes and understanding themes within a movie. And I think that theme was so profound throughout the movie, even with some of the characters who went back to the streets. It was all about growth and being better and owning what was yours, even though the ways they went about it weren't quite right.
Yeah. And can we highlight one of the characters, the person that's playing one of the characters we're talking about that's highlighting questionable decision making? Although you understand, and I think they do a great job of fleshing out his role, but Jarrell Jerome.
Jarrell.
Also, if I don't even want to say he's one to, like, usually when you say one to watch, like when I say with the other young man, he's done great work, but it's like I'm anticipating where he's going. Yes. I'm anticipating where Jarrell Jerome's going, but I'm also like, if you ain't already been one to keep an eye on him, like he's doing it. He Moonlight. He was on. He won awards for When They See Us. He does fantastic in this role as someone that's troubled and maybe made a different decision. Almost like you could also take, this fork in the road, and maybe it's not the best, but they flesh him out. He's not like a caricature of just some knucklehead. Like you really fully flesh out, and you're actually pretty invested into his outcomes as well, wherever they may be. You have to watch the movie to see, but you actually get pretty invested in a way of like, what's gonna come of him, and hoping for things for this character, even though it's like, here's the wayward character, but it's like, he's bigger than that. He's not just like, oh, just some troublemaking kid. Just like, he's bigger than that. He's more than that. All these characters are very multi-dimensional. No one's just like cut and dry, like, oh, you're the perfect this, or you're just the troublemaking. Like, no one is that just black and white in here. And I really enjoy that about the way the characters are.
But so Jay, can you give us some history of like the stables? Like, were they actually like that? Were both, when you were younger, were both men and women riders?
So the crazy part for me is I was watching this and I feel like I learned along with everyone else. Like my mom lived in Philadelphia, and we, when I was very young, moved across the bridge to Jersey, but we were always in Philadelphia. And so you will always see horses in Philly. You will always see people riding horses in Philly. And as a kid, I'm like, oh, where do they keep them? My mom's like, the stables. And so you're like, oh, okay. And then as I get older, I realize, oh, wait, these stables are in the middle of this city that we are in. And so I remember the first time that I drew the connection between what my mom told me as a child and like, oh, so this stable was built decades ago under the L train that I caught last week. Oh, okay, got it. And I remember driving down the street on my way to work, thinking I'm going crazy because I see out the corner of my eye a horsetail flick. But I can't stop because we in the middle of the city. And so I called my mom and I'm like, I think I just saw a horse in a stable. And she was like, yeah, I told you they were there. And I was like, no, you told me that they kept the horses in stables. You didn't tell me those horses and their stables was in the middle of the city. And so then she goes into the whole story about how there used to be so many of them and they were all over the city. And now they're just like more concentrated, actually like in and very close to Center City, Philadelphia. And now for me, it was always, oh, you know, these are the horses that do the horse and carriages, or the horses that come out for the police officers and the shows. But realizing that there was this whole subculture in Philadelphia that I had no idea about, that like my elders just forgot to tell me existed. I'm mad because I could have been riding horses.
You could have.
That's
I wouldn't have.
that's wild, because y'all know I'm in, you know, I'm in Texas. I grew up mostly in Texas, but born in Louisiana, but I grew up in Texas. And in like Houston, when I was growing up, it wasn't uncommon to see someone riding down the street, like in Acres Home, shout out to the fofo, but like it wasn't uncommon like seeing someone riding a horse down the street and all these things. But it just was watching this and seeing in the middle of this bustling urban part of the city, like a huge stable. Like I've seen people with their horses, and like people might have like their horse, or they might have some land for it, but like watching the Fletcher Street Riders and the way it is. And then also they touch on it, but like how, you know, gentrification and things like that also were about to impact their life, and the graph for these stables, despite the historical reference. Like it touches on so many different things that I will say after.
It talks on ownership.
Definitely had me Googling, like definitely had me trying to read and check and be like, what you know, what happened, you know?
Yeah. And it pushes on the fact of ownership. Like we're so used to being in communities for such an extended period of time that we sometimes forget that we don't have ownership of that community. And it highlighted that. And Method Man's character actually was the person who highlighted that.
He does.
Like, y'all don't own this, and we should own this. And so I think it creates the conversation about ownership, because I agree with Jay. That would have been an amazing program to be in Philadelphia. That would have been an amazing program if they could have replicated it and brought it to other inner city places like Baltimore, because realistically, Baltimore and Philadelphia are very similar cities. So that program could have been super beneficial in a place like Baltimore. Because the only time we saw horses were when they had big festivals.
That, like, this whole movie, like, I really enjoyed I think it's probably obvious. I really enjoyed this film. I enjoyed the acting. I enjoyed the way the screenplay was set up, where you got, like, we're talking about a lot of different things. And sometimes movies can be overloaded when they try to hit you with too many messages and too much father and son, do the right thing, crime, gentrification, horses, history. It never felt overwhelming. They did it in such, whoever wrote the screenplay did it in such a way, and everything's kind of layered into each other in a way where it never, to me, felt preachy. It never felt too like, here's a historical reference. Now back to, like, everything really, really flowed. Characters were well written. And when I'm telling you, like, they are very fleshed out.
You had me on my seat.
Huh?
They had me on the edge of my seat. I was nervous, like, oh my gosh, what's about to happen? Oh, is that, oh no, oh
it
no.
Was.
Like it had me on the edge of my seat, worried. Like I'm sitting here worried like somebody's auntie watching this movie.
Yes.
But I did appreciate the characters being honest and authentic. Like with Idris' character, he admitted to kind of not being a great person.
Yeah.
He admitted to that. And it was only when he realized he almost lost something valuable that he acknowledged that I'm definitely not the greatest, but
yeah,
here's who I am.
Basically. So Latira, would you recommend the movie?
So for me, I definitely would recommend this film. When I first started watching it, I wasn't sure if I was going to like it because, of course, it does highlight, you know, some levels of poverty and all those things. So I was like, oh God, is this about to be a struggle film per se? But it really wasn't. It was actually very enlightening. It did make me go research because I'm like, Fletcher Street Riders, what are those? I've never heard this in history. They didn't teach this. So definitely recommend this movie. Definitely recommend watching this movie with your children, your teenagers, because it was a great, somewhat coming of age story. And it was also just a great historical story, even though the story itself was not true. It was based on real people, but not so much real events. It's just a good talking point for you and your kids to go research and learn more about the history. So yes, I absolutely recommend it.
And I am in full agreement. Totally recommend the film. I
told y'all I was always right.
Anyway, I give it about, I don't know, A-, B+, A-, somewhere in there.
I would go with A-. I would go with A-.
I don't give A+ very much anyway, but this was a really good film. I encourage you to watch. I encourage you to look up the history that they speak on, and I fully recommend it. So go check it out. It was really, really good. It was better than I even anticipated when I went into it. It was real good. So fully recommend. Go check it out. Thank you, Jay, by the way, for the background and the knowledge.
Yes,
I got you, boo.
All right. Our next movie today, I'm gonna introduce it. I have to look down and read because this title is long, but I'm gonna give you the full title. Is the documentary We Work, or the making and breaking of a $47 billion unicorn.
Did you say billion?
Billion.
Oh.
Billion dollar unicorn. So basically the story of Adam Newman, the former CEO and founder of WeWork. So, and it's just little background. Just going to talk about, basically, you can tell from the title, the rise and fall of what at one time was seen as this revolutionary, huge company that was just going to expand and expand and expand. What did you think?
Well, first of all, because I knew it was a documentary, I was okay, but it was interesting. It was very interesting because I've been to actual WeWork locations before for meetings and for like conferences, or like a group conference thing, but like a smaller scaled one. And so they were interesting workspaces. I actually used one as a photo shoot space before. So they were interesting spaces. And I think the concept, honestly, is a good concept. I was just shocked that they made so much money.
They did. They made, especially initially, they made a lot of money, but then they didn't quite make as much money as they were saying they were making. Like, really?
And that too.
So some of these things could have been checked and verified, and folks this man could sell, like, I don't know, I guess sell anything. He knew how to sell his vision. If you watch him talk, I mean, to the point that you have very intelligent business folks that somehow missed the fact that the numbers and data they were being given was being massaged, would be the nice way to just figure out how they were, like, they just weren't counting certain things. Like, it's like, we're just not going to say we spent this on this. We're just going to use this number. We're just going to do this kind of math. Like, literally, it was like, what?
Yeah. What I thought was interesting, I mean, one, like you said, Aunt Adam could literally sell ice to water. Like, it was like, dude, like, y'all are buying into this, really and truly buying into this.
His thing is supposed to be, his stick at the beginning, and that he tries to hold on throughout, is this elevating the world's consciousness, bringing us together in this one big collaborative community where we grow and we learn together. And I'm saying it like this because we watched.
That's how he said it.
But the concept sounded in many ways enlightening. Like, what can we do together? All the brain trust and brain power. How can we work in community? How can we make the world even better with our collective thoughts and consciousness, and having fun while we do it? And, and he's speaking about it. It's on this next level plane. Like, you're like, man, but this the same person that later, who's all about the whole us and the we, hence we work.
But people bought in with such blind trust is what I didn't understand. Like, how do you buy in and not ask to see everything? Because based on when I was, when the documentary first started, based on what I thought, it was like a collaborative growth, not you're the owner and we're just kind of renting from you. It was a collaborative growth. But all the while, like you said, he was switching and swatching. And next thing you listen, he was switching and swatching. And next thing you know, he getting all this money and nobody else has any.
Nobody. But then the we show turned into a me when you like letting people go, but you getting like, multi-million dollar jets and stuff for yourself, or buying these things, this house or whatever, these homes for you while you're cutting people.
And then also the funniest part about all of this is nothing he did was illegal.
No.
He found the gray. He
Yeah.
found the loopholes and worked within them, which is always so sad with situations like this, is because people buy into your dream, buy into your vision, and you're functioning in the loophole, and they're functioning thinking that you're following the letter of the law so that everybody can prosper, and you come out on top, and all these other people lose things or never grow because they think that collectively you all are following the letter of the law. And then, I mean, I want to call it creative delusion. That's the word I'm coining.
I like that.
He was a creative delusionist. And the reason I say that, because how he spun it into other things. Like, dude, you cannot create a school off random and you have no background in education.
We Grow. That was the name.
Listen, like when I saw that, when he and his wife decided to just open a school, and I was like, so who are your backers of this school? What educators are a part of this school? What background do you have? What knowledge do you have to create a school? Do you have project management experience in creating a school? Do you understand the criteria of your state to create a school? That part, that's when I was like, oh, y'all tripping for listening to him.
Yeah. And then you have We Live, which basically to me was like this creative dorm kind of concept for creatives. Like, if you're familiar with dorms at colleges, you have the concept that you have a lot of people that are all studying. You have your own space to live, but there's a certain communal aspect, maybe places that you can gather around, maybe some common areas or whatever. And so the concept was the same thing, similar to what they did with We Work, but it was supposed to be We Live. You have your own little spot, but also you're going to be in community to these other creators. But it felt much like, as you're watching it, started to become very almost cult feeling. Like, if you're not part of the We family, you don't belong. Someone that they were talking to that lived in these and was one of the early like We system jump honors, like, kind of thing, was talking about how like his friends that didn't live there would come to visit, and it felt so uncomfortable. Like, almost everybody was looking like, who are these people? Why are they here? And how they were being told, like, when people come, act, pretend you're doing this, play a game, do these things.
Not when investors, potential investors.
When investors, like, you have to be ready to like, no, get out your room, come out here, pretend you're reading a book, pretend you're doing this chess game, do something. Parts where he's not telling the truth. Like, I'm like, he's somehow in his brain, is the delusion was real, like you were saying.
Creative delusion.
But you start to see it unravel, because there's like this speech at the end, and like he can't get through it, and you're literally watching him try to record this little small spiel to kind of almost write the company, like, this might be our chance to maybe save, we're losing these investments now. Like, all it took was all of a sudden a few things to come out, and like a couple big investors all of a sudden say, oh, wait, never mind. I thought I was going to be able to give you all this money that y'all been banking on, but now I'm not sure if we can do it. And that kind of creates this domino effect of what's going on with that. And in the damage control, it kind of made more damage, but then he's trying to record this little thing that just seems like it should be easy. And like, he can't focus, he can't get through it. You're watching someone that looks like they are struggling to hold it together. But he ain't struggling that much, because, all I'm saying is I have yet to be in a situation where I could fail and lose a lot of people, a lot of money, and lie about a lot, twist the truth.
Manipulate my words. Yeah.
A lot of things, and still get to leave with the millions upon millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars for stepping down at the company that I drove into the ground.
But on top of that, you also were able to win a lawsuit against a company because they backed out on you.
Yep.
For a failed company. Like, where they do that? He should write a book. That could be his next gimmick. His next creative delusion could be a book on how We Work actually worked.
I mean, it worked for him and his wife. His wife is a silent figure in the movie. Not silent in the movie because they talk about her, but the focus is so much on him that eventually people are like, oh, and let's not forget, let's talk about the wife who seems to be one of the few people that he kind of did listen to. She just wasn't in the front. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like she was in the back.
He was like, if silence was a scream, that's what she was. She was not silent at all. Because even in the documentary, when you first hear about him and his vision and everything and the original partner, you're like, oh, okay. But then as the documentary goes on and they talk about the dynamic of their relationship, it sounds like she was the driving and she was like the puppeteer. So while he was the face, she was pulling the strings.
That was like, no, it was wild. And I think also you have to think about this was very on purpose because, okay, I know Newman is not like white as in like, he's not like just like England, European, like kind of thing. There's his racial background. We'll talk about that. But he did have the look that we will say, like a certain Eurocentric look. And the reason I'm saying that is he still kind of fit into this American capitalism, white male leadership kind of thought of what like this tallest guy fills up a room with his personality and his voice. Right. And it seemed very much, it feels like people were like, he makes me feel comfortable and gosh, I'd like this guy kind of, I guess, more than like, because really it did not feel like they went over these investments and these numbers with a fine tooth comb. Because even throughout the documentary, it's like anyone that took the time to really pause and look at it kind of had the thought that you even mentioned too, like, how does this make money?
Yeah, correct.
Like, sustainably make money, like not just make money. But it was amazing that at first they created this huge business that was practically, it's like in a real estate type business. Like, you know, you're doing these spaces, these co-working spaces for WeWork without actually owning any real estate. Like actually in some ways it was like, this is kind of genius.
I was about to say it was a genius idea. And in theory, it was a great idea. But in reality, it was like, y'all didn't think about this when y'all decided to agree to this. But it's okay. It's okay. We do it. Plenty of people do it.
Oh, and remember, they had a part where he said well, now this is just according to Newman, you know, telling this story, and he's a storyteller, so take that as you will. I don't think the CEO of SoftBank has confirmed or really even spoke on it. Not, you know, general. He don't seem like the guy, he don't speak about his business dealings like that, but they had to do a quick ride in the car. He was supposed to do this whole pitch meeting, and then something happened, and dude was like, I'm late, but I'm 12 minutes from the airport, 15 minutes, some short amount of time from the airport, get in the car, you can talk to me then. And so he jumped in the car and he gives him a spiel, and he said something like, the CEO of SoftBank asked him, like, who in a fight, who wins, the smart guy or the crazy guy, or in a battle, in a struggle, something like that, who wins, the smart guy or the crazy guy? And Newman said, the crazy guy. I guess it was the right answer, because at least he got that initial money, and they had like a further conversation. He got that initial investment.
Well, yeah, because he said, you aren't crazy enough, but I'm going to give you this money and you need to show me how crazy you are. Listen, I was like, oh, this is about to be bad. As soon as I saw that scene, I was like, this is not going to go well. This is not going to go well.
Yeah. So, but you know, he wanted to change the world. So we're going to make the world a better place and make money while doing it.
And we gonna work.
As friendly and as nice as he might be to you, this also was not the place where you were empowered to say, I think we're making a bad choice, or I think your decision here might not be the best. They're not there.
And they did it.
Was not going to take that in. Like, that was not the place where that would be like, please tell me your critiques and criticisms so we can be stronger.
You know, that happened to one of the organizations who used the space. They wrote an article questioning things about WeWorks, and literally an hour after the story published, they were like, oh, your contract is canceled. You no longer have a space here. Give us back our keys and get out.
Yep.
And so what I realized also is that it really should have been called MeWorks, and he accidentally turned the M upside down. And then it caught on. And so people just kind of bought in. So that's what I think really was supposed to happen. And it kind of, little oopsie on the typewriter, and bam, we got We Works instead of Me Works, because everything benefited him.
Yeah. But going back to it, I recommend the documentary quite a bit. If you're a documentary person, like I said, we're talking about a lot of stuff. You're gonna be like, after a while, you're gonna be watching that like, is this a company, a fraternity, a cult, a organization for world peace, a scam? What is this? And it's all those things. Like, but I don't know, it's like, but if you like documentaries and like especially about something we know about, but like it's really not a dull one. It goes through a lot, but it's like the pace of it, and maybe because his subject is so fascinating, like he himself is just fascinating to watch. For the same reason that I think he drew people in just in general. So the topic, the ideas, the way it went, the interviews, the people they talked to, and then just the footage of watching like Adam like just talk about WeWork and his part, like it was really fascinating to me. It felt like it went by quicker than it did, because it just the pace and the tempo and just the way they did it. It's a really good documentary, and I enjoyed it a lot as far as just this case study of so much of delusion of capitalism.
Creative delusion. You have to put creative in front of it.
Yes, it was creative delusion, but it also was the delusion of some of these other folks that were so quick to hop on the next hot, shiny thing.
I mean, it was comical. I'm not gonna lie, I chuckled a lot. So I would recommend watching the documentary for many of the reasons. It was a very intriguing and interesting documentary. The subject was very charismatic and draws you in, but also it's funny, like I've mentioned previously, being actually in a WeWork space and then watching a documentary about it, it's kind of like, wow, like, okay, it's interesting to know the foundation of places you've been in. And so, yeah, I would recommend watching the documentary. It's a good documentary to watch.
And actually, I don't think this is the last we're going to hear of Newman. He just doesn't sound like the type of guy that's just going to not try to come up with something or get back in the mix. Maybe not with WeWork, but with trying to create something, to take the money he got now, do something. I don't think this is the last we're going to hear of him. I really don't. I don't know that he'll be able to successfully pull this okie doke again, but I really don't think he's just going to go off in the sunset and we're never going to hear from him again. I
make sure y'all keep checking us out.
Follow us, click and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, there's like a little bell or something down here. Click on that.
Set them notifications. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Melanated Movie Moments. And you can also email us your movie suggestions at melanatedmoviemoments@gmail.com.